Hi everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video inspired by one that BookBinge just did, which I'll link to in the description down below. In that video, she judges 10 books just based off the first paragraph and how much she would want to keep reading, and then picked one winner for her TBR. So I'm going to do the same thing today. I have a stack of 10 books that I own that I haven't read. These are all books that I don't know a ton about, but have maybe mentioned before as wanting to read them. So I am going to read the first paragraph out loud from each of these books. I'll put the text up on the screen as well, and then I will rank them in order, and I will pick my favorite, and that book will go on my March TBR. So these are kind of an eclectic mix of books that I've acquired over about the last year, and I just went and pulled everything that I didn't know too much about and wasn't planning to read imminently, but I tried to pick things that I thought I was probably interested in picking up. So first we have Tooth and Claw by Jo Walton. The only thing I know about this book is that it's supposed to be a comedy of manners, but with dragons instead of people. Okay, I'm only supposed to read the first paragraph and not the back, but I'm cheating. It says, a tale of love, money, and family conflict among dragons. All right, so let's just check out the first paragraph. That is the dedication. Oh, then we have a poem. We'll skip that. Bon Agornan writhed on his deathbed, his wings beating as if he would fly to his new life in his old body. The doctors had shaken their heads and left. Even his daughters had stopped telling him he was about to get well. He put his head down on the scant gold in his great draughty undercave, struggling to keep still and draw breath. He had only this little time left to effect everything that was to come after. Perhaps it would be an hour, perhaps less. He would be glad to leave the pains of the flesh, but he wished he had not so much to regret. Okay, so I was expecting kind of a Victorian-style novel about dragons, and this first paragraph definitely delivers that. It's written more in an old-fashioned 19th century kind of language, but it's about a dragon. So that definitely engages me, the juxtaposition of the dragon with something that is not what you'd really expect a dragon to be doing. But on the other hand, I don't feel particularly excited to continue reading the book after reading that first paragraph either. It still seems like a book that I would generally want to pick up, like that kind of humor in putting those two things together is definitely something that appeals to me. So I like the idea of the book, but I am not super excited to continue from the first paragraph. Next, we have Arthur C. Clarke, The Songs of Distant Earth. I know nothing about this. This is a classic science fiction, and the reason I have it is because I got it in a mystery book bundle that I bought almost a year ago from my local used bookstore, where I just named a genre and they gave me 5 books, and I haven't read any of those books yet. But yeah, so all I know about this is classic old school science fiction. Okay. Even before the boat came through the reef, Marissa could tell that Brant was angry. The tense attitude of his body as he stood at the wheel, the very fact that he had not left the final passage in Kumar's capable hands, showed that something had upset him. Yeah, that doesn't draw me in at all. I don't really know where we are, except apparently on a ship, I guess. I mean, I assume it's a spaceship. I don't really care. I think I'm gonna rank this one below Tooth and Claw, because not only did the first paragraph not draw me in, but I'm not particularly interested in the premise of the book, which I don't really know what it is. Okay, next we have one that's a popular one on BookTube. This is Stormfront by Jim Butcher, the first book in the Dresden Chronicles. This is a series that I want to try at some point, but I'm reading enough series right now, and I've also heard that this first one, a lot of people say the series doesn't get good until later, which really drives me crazy because I'm the kind of person that has to start at the beginning of the series. Even when there's a TV show and people are like, season 2 is where it gets good, start with season 2. I can't. I'll start with season 1 and then I'll hate season 1 and not continue the show, but I won't start with season 2. Chapter 1. I heard the mailman approach my office door half an hour earlier than usual. He didn't sound right. His footsteps fell more heavily, jauntily, and he whistled. A new guy. He whistled his way to my office door, then fell silent for a moment. Then he laughed. Okay, that's actually a pretty good first paragraph. I can tell this is kind of a well, I know that it's supposed to be a detective plus wizard kind of story, but it has the sort of detective hard-boiled feel a little bit from the writing already. We have the tight first person, the narrator is observing things, he's listening to people's footsteps and knowing what that sounds like, and then you wonder why the mailman laughs when he gets to the door. You're sort of intrigued. So actually, out of the 3 so far, I'm going to rank this one first. So next we have The House of Names by Colm Toibin. This is, I think, kind of a Greek mythology retelling from the point of view of Clytemnestra, who is the wife of King Agamemnon. And as you may know, if you're familiar with Greek mythology, she ends up murdering him when he comes back from the Trojan War. So I've read one book before by Colm Toibin, which is very different. It was historical fiction. I think it was called Brooklyn. It was about an Irish immigrant to Brooklyn. And I really liked that book, actually, although it was kind of sad. But let's see what this one's like. I have been acquainted with the smell of death, the sickly, sugary smell that wafted in the wind towards the rooms in this palace. It is easy now for me to feel peaceful and content. I spend my morning looking at the sky and the changing light. The birdsong begins to rise as the world fills with its own pleasures, and then, as day wanes, the sound too wanes and fades. I watch as the shadows lengthen. So much has slipped away, but the smell of death lingers. Maybe the smell has entered my body and been welcomed there like an old friend come to visit. The smell of fear and panic. The smell is here like the very air is here. It returns in the same way as light in the morning returns. It is my constant companion. It has put life into my eyes. Eyes that grew dull with waiting but are not dull now. Eyes that are alive now with brightness. Okay, so I know that this author is a more literary author, so I expected, more flowery language. And I actually like the writing style, but that really didn't grab me either. I don't know. I definitely would put this below Stormfront, but do I put it above Tooth and Claw? No, I think the dragon is more interesting, sorry. Next we have From Unseen Fire by Cass Morris, which I know nothing about at all, but I think it's supposed to be a Roman-inspired fantasy series. We have maps in here. Lucius Quinctilius was not by nature a reflective man, so perhaps it was just as well that the dictator's men gave him little time to contemplate his fate. Yeah, I would keep reading. I enjoyed that. I like Roman settings anyway. That seemed exciting. I have the feeling this guy is about to get executed. That was the prologue, by the way, not the first chapter. But yeah, it was only one sentence long, but I definitely would want to continue reading this book and find out what's going on and what's happening to this guy. So I think I'm going to actually put this one first so far. Okay, so now that we're halfway through, I'll just review how I've ranked them so far. At the bottom, we have Arthur C. Clarke, The Songs of Distant Earth. Second from the bottom, that is a weird way of saying it. Fourth, we have Colm Toibin, House of Names. Third, Joe Walton, Tooth and Claw. Second, Jim Butcher, Stormfront. And first, From Unseen Fire by Cass Morris. Next, I grabbed The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. This is one I've sort of meant to read for years, but never really gotten around to. I know it's historical fiction. It's big. I don't know. We'll see what I think. I feel like this is one of those books that people buy and then don't read. That has certainly been the case for me. Oh, I think we have a prologue. And I'll do the prologue and not the first chapter. The small boys came early to the hanging. That's the whole first paragraph. I guess books that start with somebody about to get killed or probably about to get killed seem to be engaging to me because I think I'm going to put this one second. I am very curious what's going on. Next, we have one I've mentioned a few times recently. This is A Hero Born by Yong. This is the first part, I guess you would say, of a novel in Chinese that's called The Legends of the Condor Heroes, and this has sold over 300 million copies worldwide, but this is the first English translation. I've been wanting to read it, but I've also heard that the translation is so I'm not sure, but I'm curious to open it up for the first time. Okay, there's an introduction. I don't think that's part of the book. Oh, we have a list of characters. That's a lot of characters. Cool. All right, chapter 1. The Chentong River stretches from the west, where its waters swell day and night past the new imperial capital of Linan and the nearby Ox village onto the sea in the east. 10 cypresses stand proudly along its banks, their leaves red like fire. A typical August day. The grasses are turning yellow beneath the trees, and the setting sun is breaking through their branches, casting long, bleak shadows. Under the shelter of 2 giant pine trees, men, women, and children have gathered to listen to a traveling storyteller. I feel like for me, this is another kind of Like, I kind of liked the writing style of the translator, I suppose, but I kind of liked it. It was descriptive. I don't love things that start with description. I don't love things that start with storytellers, but it was okay. I think this is still kind of near the bottom for me. This stack is getting harder to maneuver. The books are all different sizes. But I'm going to put this, I think, third from the end. I'll go over my rankings later because this is probably getting hard to keep track of. Next, we have Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I bought this at the used bookstore recently. I've been wanting to give Neil Gaiman another shot. I really love Good Omens, which is the collaboration between Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. And I read American Gods as a teenager, and it was just a bit much for me at the time, but I know his books are really different from each other, and also a lot of people love Neil Gaiman, so I thought maybe this would be a good place to start. I think this is one, I don't know if it's actually for children or just like more fairy tale-like, but that's sort of my impression of what Stardust would be like. Well, it starts with a poem by John Donne called Song. The really funny thing is, I think Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones uses this exact same poem. It's a good poem. I like John Donne. Okay, here is the first chapter. I almost found it. These pages are hard to turn. Well, the chapter title, I'll cheat because I want to read the chapter title, in which we learn of the village of Wall and of the curious thing that occurs there every 9 years. Honestly, I found that pretty darn compelling. Okay, here's the first paragraph. It's just one sentence. There was once a young man who wished to gain his heart's desire. It's actually very hard to not keep reading that. It's obviously feels very fairy tale, very mythical, but it kind of appealed to me right now. I think whether I wanted to continue would really depend whether I was in the mood for this kind of story or whether I was looking for something a little more adult. But honestly, based on how I'm feeling today, I think this is a pretty strong contender for me because it just seems like this would be a really nice book to sit down and read. I think this is a little bit of a surprise to me, but I think I'm actually going to put this one first. And that might be because I also liked the chapter title. Next, I have The Lost Queen by Signe Pike. I don't know anything about this. I think I bought it last summer. I'm sure I looked up what it was at the time, and now I've forgotten again, but pretty sure this is fantasy. That's all I know. I'm kind of mixed on whether I like to know things going into books. Sometimes I want to be completely surprised, but generally I'll look up at least a little bit about the book before I read it. We got a map. We got pronunciations. I'm not going to read those right now, but okay, here we are, chapter 1. There's also a location and a year, but I'll skip those. I was dreaming of the forest. This time, no rustle of wind, no bird call, no sliver of light penetrated the thick canopy of trees. Silence thundered in my ears like a band of war horses. And then, through the gloom, I heard my mother call my name, her voice soft and hollow-throated as a dove's. Honestly, I found that a little bit overwritten. The style, it was a little too flowery for me, or at least I don't mind things that are flowery, but it felt a little forced. I don't feel super excited to continue this one. I think this is going to be somewhere towards the middle bottom. Our last contender today is State of Wonder by Ann Patchett. Ann Patchett writes more, I would consider it more contemporary fiction rather than literary fiction. She's a writer that I overall quite like. I think I enjoyed some of her earlier books more. I don't think I've read everything by her, but she's an author that if I'm going to pick up contemporary fiction, it might be her. And I think this has something to do with a scientist like getting lost in a remote area or like exploring somewhere. That's kind of what I remember about the book, but that's about it. The news of Anders Ekman's death came by way of aerogram. Let's try that again. The news of Anders Ekman's death came by way of aerogram, a piece of bright blue airmail paper that served as both the stationery and, when folded over and sealed along the edges, the envelope. Who even knew they still made such things? This single sheet had traveled from Brazil to Minnesota to mark the passing of a man, a breath of tissue so insubstantial that only the stamp seemed to anchor it to this world. Mr. Fox had the letter in his hand when he came to the lab to tell Marina the news. When she saw him there at the door, she smiled at him, and in the light of that smile, he faltered. Yeah, I found that moderately interesting, and it might be because I kind of had some idea what the book might be about, but I thought that was a pretty good first paragraph. I liked the description. It got my mind imagining things that I didn't know about. Again, I think this is sort of high middle to me. I think I'm going to put this one number 3. Ugh, that's pretty heavy. Okay, in first place, we had Stardust by Neil Gaiman. Then we had From Unseen Fire by Cass Morris. Third was Ann Patchett, State of Wonder. Fourth, these are not all lined up the same way. Fourth, we had The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Fifth, Jim Butcher, Stormfront. 6, Joe Walton, Tooth and Claw. 7, A Hero Born by Yong. 8 is The Lost Queen by Signe Pike. That was backwards. 9, House of Names by Colm Toibin. And then 10, The Songs of the Dying Earth by, I forgot his name already. It's not Dying Earth, that's a different series. And in 10th, we have Arthur C. Clarke, The Songs of Distant Earth. I feel like it would have been funny if, as part of this challenge, as well as putting the number 1 book on my TBR for next month, I had like unhauled the 10th place book. I'm not going to do that, although I am kind of thinking of getting rid of this as soon as we can give stuff away to used bookstores again. It looks like Stardust is our winner, and I feel like that was a little bit unfair because honestly, the chapter title was really great and I couldn't help but read that. But still, I think this will be a nice one to add to my March TBR, and it's also not too long, and it's one I've been wanting to read anyway, so this is pretty good. Also, I feel like it's fair to say it's really hard to judge books off the first paragraph. Almost all of them were pretty boring, and I bet that paragraph 2 would probably have been really exciting in some of them, but that's what this challenge was, so I had a really fun time doing this, and I'm curious if there are any books that you guys have read that you think I horribly misjudged, or what you guys thought and how you would have ranked these books differently. So let me know down in the comments what you thought about these books and which one you think I should have read, or if there are any others you think I should really pick up soon. Thanks so much for watching, and please go ahead and like this video and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me.